This is a question from JAM 2025. Okay, let us read it. Which one of the following is correct in context of a natural monopoly? A natural monopoly. Okay, so before we read the options, let us try to understand what a natural monopoly is in the first place. Okay, you will see the graph and understand, break down what we understand from the graph. Okay, so this is the long run average cost curve. Okay, let us write costs on the y-axis and quantity or output on the x-axis, right? So this is the long run average cost curve of whatever this specific industry is. Okay, we will see some of the examples a little later, but let us say this is the entire long run average cost curve for the entire industry. Now let us say that the demand curve is somewhere here on the part that has been stabilized. Okay, as we can see that at a lower level of output the cost is very high. Okay, but at the as the output is increasing, the cost is coming down relatively faster, and at one point the cost has stabilized at a level. Okay, it has stabilized at a level, so it is not completely like this. It is like first sort of straight, then when it comes down it stabilizes, right? It is straight for some time. So at this point we can say that now the cost is coming down relatively slower, so this is where the demand curve is going to meet it. This is the demand curve for the entire industry, where let's say that 100 units are being demanded at a cost of 10 rupees. So this is for the entire industry. Now let us say that the government allows 10 firms in this entire market. Okay, there are 10 firms that are competing in this market. So whatever the entire output is, each firm is going to produce 1/10 of that. Okay, every firm is producing an equal amount of output. Let's say this is where 10 is. So now look at this. This is where we can say 20. Okay, so now you will see that there is a problem, there is a discrepancy. The consumer is willing to pay 10 rupees. Okay, right? At this demand the consumer is going to be demanding 100 units in the whole industry, in the entire market. The sum total of the demand made by all the consumers is 100 units, and they are demanding it at a price of 10 rupees. But because there are 10 firms, okay, each firm is producing 10 units only, and that is costing them 20 rupees. Why? Because in this industry, the nature of this industry or this market is such that the initial cost is very high. Okay, the initial cost, the initial fixed costs are very high. That is the nature of this very industry, right? So but we have also seen that but the marginal cost is very low, right? Once that you have paid off the fixed costs, right, the marginal cost for producing each additional output, that is very low, and because of that the long run average cost curve comes down very fast, because even though the startup cost was so high, the cost of operation is so low that the curve is coming down very fast. And what could be such examples? Example could be railway sector in India, right? Or it could be highways, right? Highway, let's say toll plaza, highway tolls, so and etc. Okay, so you know that the cost that you pay for toll, right, whatever that price is, but the cost that the company is incurring to get that price out of you, the daily operational cost for them is relatively very low per customer, right? What are they doing? There are just a bunch of people, and now even not that, now most of the tolls are completely automated, right? So the cost per customer is very low, but the startup cost, they have to make the highway first, right? Then they have to make the booths, right? So the startup cost for the toll plaza is very high. Okay, they have to give good roads first, but the per unit, the per customer cost, operational cost is very low. Similarly, in the railway industry, you will see in India that if you want to, like, if you allow a lot of firms, if you say that Reliance and Tatas and this and that, all the big firms are now going to enter the railway market, right? You will see that each of them has to bear a startup cost. They have to buy trains, they have to set up more tracks so that there is more demand, and they have to bear such a high startup cost. But the operational cost will be very low once that it is set up, right? But because the customers are demand, the demand is already there and the price that they are willing to pay is lesser, right? And when the market gets divided, each firm is getting a higher cost. They are facing a loss, they are facing lesser and lesser profits, such that they will have to exit the industry. And when such when such an industry exists, it is better to let a monopoly take over the entire industry. Okay, you can write it is better. In this case, it is better and more profitable and viable to let the monopoly take over the market. Why are we saying this? We are saying this because when there are a lot of firms, let's say when there are 10 firms, the cost is very high. But when there is only one firm, the firm will produce the entire output. And as the output keeps increasing, the cost keeps coming down further and further, because the operational marginal cost, the additional marginal cost for to get each additional customer, that is very low. Okay, so it is better and more viable and sustainable for the entire industry to let a natural monopoly take over rather than to bring in more firms, because they are going to face a loss, and this is called a natural monopoly. Okay, a monopoly that has to exist by the very nature of the industry. You can write this down, that it is a form of monopoly that must exist because of the nature of the industry. And what is the nature of this industry? You can write in bracket that it is very high startup costs but low marginal costs. Okay, low marginal costs. So this is when we say that there is a natural monopoly, a natural monopoly in an industry. So this is why you will see that in India there are no private firms that are entering the railway market, right? There is a reason behind it. So now let us see the options. Now let us look at it. First one, monopoly arises because one key input is a precious natural resource. No, that is a resource monopoly. That is not a natural monopoly, right? Now a lot of students also get a little confused in this option because of the name natural monopoly, right? They think that it must be because of some kind of a natural resource, but no, that is not the case, and that is the reason that the jam examiner has played on your weakness and he has put this statement in this question. Then the second, then let's come to the third one first. Government does not allow other producers to produce the product. No, that is also not what we are saying. The government is not doing because it wants to do that, right? It is happening because of a reason. So this is also wrong. We have seen what the reason is. Now comes the now comes the very tricky part. Indian Railway is an example of such a monopoly. Now, even though this statement is correct in most of the colleges in DU or wherever you go, you will see that it is very common for a professor or a teacher to give, when they are talking about a natural monopoly, to give the example of Indian Railways, right? It is very, very common for them, and it also makes a lot of sense. But here we are talking in the objective sense, okay? Because when I also appeared, I also without any hesitation, I just saw that there is Indian Railway mentioned in the natural monopoly question. I wanted to save time. I was also actually running low on time, so without seeing any further, I chose this option. But in the end this was actually incorrect, because I didn't even read the second option, and that was my mistake. So uh, with the right answer, another advice that I want to give you is always read all of the options, okay? Take your time, right? Because if I remember correctly, I had like 25 minutes remaining when I had finished the paper. So if I had read this question properly, I would have gotten this right. So now let us read the statement. Total fixed cost is substantially larger than the total variable cost. This is 100% correct. This is the very core and the definition of natural monopoly, right? So in the context of natural monopoly, even though this is right, there can be only one option right in this, because this is not an MSQ, this is an MCQ. Okay. So we will always correct the one that is objectively clearer and more factual, because there are a lot of arguments that also can be made against this option. Okay, there are some arguments, I mean most of the arguments are for that Indian Railways is indeed a natural monopoly, but there are also some assumptions that might not always be true. Okay, because lately you would have seen that some private players are slowly trying to enter the market, okay, and they might even get some profits out of it. So that is why the objectively right and factual statement here is the second one. That is the right answer.